So that new national poll sizing up the Democratic field has Joe Biden's lead growing. Again, he's at 33 points in the Monmouth University poll, and that is well ahead of Bernie Sanders at 15, as Garrett was saying there. Two other senators are making gains as well, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren at 11 points and 10 points respectively. Well, joining me now, former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell, Republican strategist Lauren Zelt, and Amy Holmes, former speechwriter for then Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist. With a welcome to all three of you here on this holiday weekend. Governor, to you first. You've made no bones about the fact that you're a Joe Biden supporter. So if you're Joe Biden and you're maintaining a nearly 20-point lead on your closest Democratic competitor at this point, what is your mentality and approach right now?
Then it's a long, long road ahead, and with that type of lead, you've got to try to avoid making any big mistakes. I think if Joe Biden can go through the next 12, 13 months without making any major mistakes, I think he's the nominee. It's as simple as that.
So he starts out in front and he stays out in front without any mistakes in your mind. Lauren, Vanity
wire to
Fair.
wire.
Okay. Vanity Fair reporting, Lauren, on the Republicans' efforts to take down Joe Biden, the 2020 candidate most feared by President Donald Trump, and the Republican insiders working to re-elect him, is that article. Are they jumping ahead here, though? Because we are at such an early stage in this race. The strategy behind going full throttle on a takedown effort right now is what?
Well, I think the strategy that you're seeing play out is that there are just so many years of records for Joe Biden to go through, voting records, his positions for, the many years that he's been in public office. So I think the GOP is smart to get a jump on this opposition research, just given the sheer volume of what they have to work with. And I think I'll be interested to see how this plays out among Democrats and whether or not, if these Republicans release any of these things, talking to some of the more progressive folks, they're looking at his past voting stances in the criminal justice reform arena, for example, and, some of those tough on crime decisions that were made in the 90s. And the trajectory for those type of things is very different now. Criminal justice reform is something that both parties have come together on. And I think you may see some of those liberal voters look at some of these past voting records and say, hey, is this the guy for the moment right now? So I don't think it's premature, but I do think at this point that Joe Biden is probably the strongest candidate on the Dem side who could possibly take some of those blue-collar states away from President Trump.
So then, Amy, do you think Republicans should be going after Joe Biden right now?
Well, the rule in politics is define your opponent before they can define themselves. So they are taking out after Joe Biden. But I would also bring up a poll in Iowa. Gravis has Biden and Bernie Sanders tied in Iowa, which would, of course, be, kicking off the primary season. So I'm not so sure that Joe Biden is sitting in such a comfortable seat. And remember, back in 2016, who would have thought that Bernie Sanders would be giving Hillary Clinton a run for the money? He was a self-described socialist. He's actually an independent who caucuses with Democrats. And the very fact that he's in contention now in 2020 is because of his dark horse race in 2016. So, as the governor says, it is a long road ahead. I'd also cast back to 2008. Again, who would have thought that a freshman senator from Illinois named, as he said, Barack Hussein Obama would end up becoming the nominee and then the president.
Governor, do you want to respond to what Amy said and also Lauren's point that, Joe Biden does have a pretty lengthy record to examine?
Yeah, there's no question about it. But the record cuts both ways. I've heard a lot about the problems with the crime bill, and there were some problems, and Joe Biden's admitted those problems. But the crime bill actually passed an assault weapons ban. It passed a ban on high-capacity magazines, something that progressives die for. We'd give our right arm for an assault weapons ban on high-capacity magazines. So I think Joe Biden has a terrific record if you look at the totality of his career. He has nothing to apologize for. In fact, there wouldn't have been an ACA without Joe Biden. There wouldn't have been an economic stimulus without Joe Biden.
What about the first round of debates, Governor, which are just a little more than a month out, a month and a day specifically? It's increasingly likely we're going to see 20 candidates taking the stage. That is the maximum set by the DNC's new rules. What's your take on how this whole thing is shaking out? Do you think the DNC set the bar for qualifying too low?
No, look, given what's happened before, Rick Santorum wound up winning Iowa and actually in 2008 coming very close to, in 2012 coming very close to being the nominee. And this time, back in the equivalent year, Rick Santorum would have not been able to get into a debate if you set the bar too high. No, I think the bar is set right. It's going to be tough with 2 debates with 10 candidates each. That's usually about 10 minutes for each candidate. It's going to be tough to get a feel for a candidate. I think the debates will be important as the field begins to winnow out.
But you don't worry that it's counterproductive, Governor, right now, since you have the majority of candidates right around 1% right now. I mean, certainly under 2%. Or you think it's timing-wise it's okay because it's early enough?
Sure, because it's June, June of the year before. It's early enough. I mean, a candidate like Amy Klobuchar, who I think, given her positions on issues, is very well suited to be the candidate for the fall. Amy Klobuchar suffers from the fact that not a lot of people know who she is. Maybe in the debates they'll begin to focus on an Amy Klobuchar or Pete Buttigieg, you know. So, I think it's perfect right now. But the field will winnow out as candidates start to drop off.
So my 2 Republicans here on the panel, ladies, when you look at how these stages will be presented for the debates, I mean, 10 and 1, 10 and 0, that's a lot of candidates. Do you think that helps the Republicans or hurts the Republicans to have this kind of conversation when the only other conversation being had on the Republican side surrounds Donald Trump? Lauren, you first.
Well, it's just so reminiscent of 2016. I think that you're probably going to see a lot of Dem Party infighting about who's in which debate. Republicans got a lot of criticism for what they called the kiddie table debates or the debates with the candidates that were polling less. But I think overall, I think that Republicans are helped by the fact that they do have one candidate to focus on. Yes, there are challengers, President Governor Weld, I know, and there has been talk about Justin Amash coming in as a libertarian candidate. But all the talk on the left, I think all the infighting, I think it could serve to benefit Republicans, but I also think it's a little too early to know.
Okay. Amy, your thoughts on the question?
Well, I would agree with that if Democrats are fighting each other, they're not fighting President Trump. And I would also suggest that President Trump has no problem getting headlines.
Yeah, point well taken. I was going to say, we talk about it all the time. Okay, all 3 of you have a great holiday weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. Would Mueller testifying?